And this is Sachin Patel with the Living Proof Institute. Hope your day is going fantastic so far. I know it's Friday, so I'm excited. I'm super stoked about the weekend. It's also Diwali. So happy Diwali to everyone that's watching. I would like to just make sure that you can see and hear me. So if you could just post a little like or a little love, that would be fantastic. And also, as we're getting tuned in, I would love it if you could tell me where you're from. So just go ahead in the comments section, type in where you're from, and let us know, why you're tuning in, perhaps, and any questions that you have. I'm going to be super excited to take those towards the end. We're going to go for about half an hour, and then I'm going to take all your questions. I'm going to leave about 5 to 10 minutes or so towards the end, and we're going to answer any questions that you have. So I'm just going to make sure that I'm logged in. I would also encourage you to share this with somebody that you care about and somebody that you love, because this is going to be some powerful information that can be really helpful for you. So thank you, Angie. Thanks for tuning in. Welcome to the show from Oakville, so not too far from us, just down the street. Awesome. I'm located in Mississauga. I'm right by Square One. I can see Celebration Square from my apartment, so you're not too far from glucose monitor. And here what I have is my FreeStyle Libre, which is made by a company called Abbott. And all I have to do is turn it on and hold it close to the sensor. And I have an instantaneous reading of my blood sugar. So it's 5.8. I purposely. So you're going to see this go up in a short period of time. So I ate 4 dates right before I started this. You're going to see this popping. I haven't had any breakfast today, so I'm experimenting with some intermittent fasting. And I also worked out this morning as well. You might not be able to see this, so I'll share this a little bit later. Actually, you can see it pretty good. You can see that my blood sugar was high in the morning. That's when I was exercising, and you want your blood sugar to be elevated when you're exercising, because that's what's going to fuel the response. If you see your blood sugar crashing during your exercise, then that could be a bit of a problem. And you'll see that for a period of time there, my blood sugar went down and then it came back up. So there's a little volcano there if you look at it that way. But you'll also notice in the very beginning of the day, as my day was starting, right around 3:30-ish, you can see my blood sugar starts to crash. And I actually woke up when it starts to go back up. So that's the time I normally wake up. But what you'll see there is I was awakened by the fact that my blood sugar was crashing. When your blood sugar crashes, what ends up happening is you start developing a decrease in blood sugar. And then in order to raise blood sugar, your body releases catecholamines. So what should have happened is my body should have made a little bit of cortisol and then increased it. So this could be a sign of dysfunction with my adrenals. Now, that being said, I've got a lot on my plate. I run a few businesses. And, I try to be active physically and in my community. So there's a lot of things on my plate that I do, but this clues me into seeing what's going on. Now, if I fasted for 12 hours, then went in to see the doctor once or twice a year, I wouldn't get any of this information. One of the challenges that I have, I've had this for many years, is I always wake up in the middle of the night. And now I know why. I know why this problem is persisting for me. And I've taken supplements to help me with my sleep, and some of them have helped, but none of them have allowed me to sleep completely through the night. And we all know how important that is. So I'm a work in progress, just like many of you that are watching this. And this was an important, valuable insight to me. I also haven't eaten yet, so we can see that my blood sugars are staying pretty stable. They're not crashing. Let's see if they've changed in the last few minutes. So we can see that it's staying pretty stable. And the marker actually tells you that it's stable, and you can see that. If it starts to go up or if it starts to go down, then it'll start showing up a little bit lower. So we've got Gabby from Denver. We've got Sweta. Thanks, Sweta. I met you at the airport. Yes, I remember that. Thanks for tuning in. I appreciate that. So what is blood sugar connected to? Which is a question that you're probably asking. Why is this important? And why do I think that our conventional system is missing the boat? And why do I think that continuous glucose monitoring, especially if you're trying to change a behavior, can be extremely valuable and give you a lot of insight? So blood sugar is an important marker because sugar is a fuel for our cells. So the mitochondria in our body can use fats and amino acids and carbohydrates as a source of energy. And the carbohydrates have to be broken down into their simpler forms, and glucose is one of those simpler forms. When glucose gets into the cell, in the presence of B vitamins and other minerals like magnesium, what happens is that glucose turns into a usable form of energy called ATP. This is like the fuel going into our car, and then the pedal is the hormones controlling how much we want to rev the engine, and the engine itself is like the mitochondria. So think of food in the fuel tank as food in the digestive system. Think of the circulatory system like the fuel line getting the fuel to the engine, and in this case, the cell where it needs to go. And think of the accelerator as the governor, which essentially determines how much fuel we're going to send to the engine. So I hope that analogy helps explain things to you. If our blood sugar crashes, it's like our fuel line is being cut. It's like we're taking our foot off of the pedal, or the engine is going to start sputtering because there isn't nutrition for it, or there isn't products for it to turn into energy. Now, when our blood sugar crashes, because this is a dire situation, what ends up happening is we rely on our adrenals and catecholamines, which are fight or flight neurotransmitters, to then elevate our blood glucose. Now, if we do that, what we're essentially also doing is we're creating a stress response. So one of the important regulators of blood sugar, one of the main regulators of blood sugar in our body is actually cortisol. So some people might not have stress, let's say mental, emotional, financial stress, for example, but if your blood sugar is crashing all the time because you're not timing your meals properly, or you're recovering from a meal that you had that was laced with high and refined carbohydrates, then what you end up doing is you end up releasing all this cortisol throughout the day to increase blood sugar. Now, this can happen in the night, and if it happens at night, then it's going to wake you up because cortisol creates a wake-up response, essentially. It's a stress response. And so these are things that you can start monitoring. Now, some people may not feel hungry when it's time to eat because catecholamines, which are these fight or flight neurotransmitters, also suppress our appetite, because if you're under stress and a lion's chasing you, eating and having hunger is not going to increase your chances of survival. And you might notice this when you're working under a deadline, you typically don't feel hungry. People are like, how do you do it? How do you go all day without eating? Well, the reason is because you're functioning off of adrenal hormones and catecholamines, which essentially suppress your appetite. Like if somebody in your family was in a dire situation, or if you got into a car accident, being hungry is like one of the last things that's going to be on your mind. Food is going to be the last thing on your mind. So if you're under a lot of stress, you're going to suppress your appetite because of this physiological change that's taking place, and your body senses it's in a danger type of situation. So thanks for that question, Diana. Usually the body makes sense. Like everything can be explained in a very simple and easy to understand way. Now, another thing to keep in mind when it comes to blood sugar regulation is if we don't regulate blood sugar properly, or if because of chronic stress or because of poor dietary choices, our blood sugar stays high continuously, we also increase what are called aging byproducts. So these are called advanced glycolytic end products. A sign of aging, which is conveniently known as, is liver spots. You'll see like pigmentation, hyperpigmentation of the skin. Another early sign of blood sugar dysregulation is going to be if you skip a meal and you get really hungry or really angry. Another sign is going to be skin tags. So early on, when people are developing changes in their blood sugar handling capabilities, you might start to see skin tags on people. Okay, I saw a sign just down the street from here where you can get your skin tags removed for $5 each, or you can learn how to eat and take care of yourself and probably reverse your diabetes and not have any more skin tags. The other thing that'll change is your skin. So sometimes you'll see a darkening of people's skin in certain areas of the body. So that's another sign of blood sugar dysregulation. Brain fog is another sign of blood sugar dysregulation. Waking up in the middle of the night, which is what happens to me, that's another sign. We also will see weight gain in the midsection. So if you start to see weight gain in your midsection that's hard to shake, then that's usually a sign of blood sugar dysregulation. And the reason we associate that with stress is, again, stress increases blood sugar, increases insulin resistance, increases fat deposition, especially around the midsection, because as Diana pointed out, things make sense. The body's smart. when we're running away from a lion, it would make more sense if our weight was carried in the midsection, in the trunk, not in our arms and legs, because that would actually slow us down. So the body does a lot of smart things. Now, if blood sugar gets unchecked and you go to the doctor and let's say you fast for 12 hours, which you normally don't do, then guess what? You're getting a marker that's not really painting a clear picture of how your body's regulating blood sugar throughout the day. So 70% of our day is spent in a postprandial state. And what that means is 70% of our day is spent in a state where we just ate in the last 2 to 3 hours. So if you have breakfast at 9 and then lunch at noon and then a snack at 3 and then dinner at 6, you've basically been eating all day. And now your doctor tells you to fast for 12 hours, which is not your natural state of physiology because you're waiting, you're not usually waiting that long to eat something. So guess what? They're looking at a single spot in time and not at how your body handles sugar throughout the day. How does it handle carbohydrates? How does that protein shake in the morning that you're having, how does that impact your blood sugar? Maybe instead of drinking it all at once, maybe you drink half of it in the morning and half of it as a snack so that you're not dumping all this glucose into your bloodstream, which can have detrimental effects to your overall health. So I really love this thing. Let's see if it's changed. 5.5, staying pretty stable. Okay, it's actually gone down just a tiny little bit. So that's good. That means that I'm regulating my blood sugar well. Now, this is great too because you can also put yourself in different environments and see what happens. So if I'm at the office all day, I can see what's happening. Another nice thing about this device, I should sell these, which I don't, but they just came out. So here's the other cool thing about this. You can actually keep a log. So I can keep a log of if I took a medication, if I went and exercised, like all that stuff can be logged. Another thing that's cool about this is that you can also, let's see, so we can review my history. So we can take a look at a daily graph. So there's a daily graph of my blood sugar, and you can see that it was pretty stable throughout the night. The last part of the night, it dropped, and then I woke up, went to the gym, and then came back down, and it's been pretty stable since then. So we can also look at trends. We can see how long I've been in my target range. So here you can see that I'm in my target range. I'm popping high and low, going up and down, but 56% of the time I'm in my target range. So, that's another thing for us to keep in mind. Okay. And then you can also see other things like low glucose events. So we can see if my glucose has crashed. I've had 2 of them, and they're both in the middle of the night. Okay. So again, I could start seeing patterns to see when my blood sugar is dropping and then do something about it. So what this tells me is that now what I can do tonight and experiment with this now is I can have a higher fat, higher protein dinner. And the fact, because I'm primarily vegetarian, the problem is I end up eating a lot of carbs, or not a lot, but more carbs with my dinner, because that tends to be one of my bigger meals than I would have carbs in the morning, let's say. So because my carbs are maybe backloaded, that might not work for me. Maybe I need to have a higher fat or a higher protein meal instead, and start being more conscious of that. Again, now that I have data, I can start experimenting. So these devices are available in Canada. They're available through the internet. I can share a link once I'm done here. And they're available through Abbott Labs. So you'll be able to find them. It's called the FreeStyle Libre. I think that this is going to be a very, very cool thing for us to be implementing into the office as well. You really didn't have this type of trackability and self-accountability without expensive devices. This little thing sticks on there for 14 days. And again, I'm going to experiment with all kinds of things. I'm going to start, tuning my body for what works for me, not what works on somebody else's blog, or not what works on, a book that I read, or what works for somebody else who has a different ancestry, who has a different lifestyle, who has a different everything than me. I'm going to find out what works for me. And we're actually going to be introducing this into our practice in the next week or so, which means that any new patient that joins, we're going to start tracking, giving them a tool like this so they can start tracking their blood glucose. And that way we can monitor, so many things. So this one marker is associated to your cortisol. It's associated to insulin. Insulin is an aging hormone. So it's what we call a mitogenic hormone, accelerates the aging process, increased blood pressure, increases cardiovascular disease, increases degeneration of the brain. So we want to keep insulin low. The way we keep insulin low is by keeping blood sugar stable. So cortisol and insulin are two hormones that we have pretty much full control over in our bodies. Now, another thing to keep in mind is that if our cortisol is high, then our DHEA is going to be low, and DHEA is the hormone that is the precursor hormone to our sex hormone. So our testosterone and estrogen is going to be problematic as well, which means that if your blood sugar is crashing, then think of that as lowering your testosterone production. That's one way to look at it, or lowering your estrogen production, or even your progesterone production. Another thing that we'll see in some people, if you're eating healthy and you're getting a mismatched response from your food in terms of your macros, like your carbohydrate intake and your what you're seeing on your blood sugar monitor, you might have an allergy to a food, okay? Because again, you're increasing cortisol. You might also have a gut response that's going on that's feeding inflammation in your gut, which then increases the cortisone output that your body has to undergo. When we don't regulate blood sugar, we also fuel an immune response. Okay, so one of the things that increases our inflammatory cytokines is low blood sugar. Okay, we also put strain on our adrenals. Our adrenals regulate basically every function in our body. When our blood sugar isn't regulated properly, we decrease muscle growth and the ability to put on lean muscle tissue, which is connected to our health and vitality. We affect our brain function, and we increase the likelihood of having brain fog because the brain, although likes ketones, it also likes glucose. Glucose is a very simple sugar for our body to utilize as a source of energy to make ATP. Also, when your blood sugar drops, guess what else happens? When you increase cortisol as a result of lowering blood sugars, then you decrease thyroid function. So now, your thyroid doesn't function the way it's supposed to. When cortisol is high, we also start compromising digestive function. So this spills into so many different areas in your life. And all you have to do, the two hormones that you have to be able to manage, and if you're not managing these two hormones, then forget about everything else that you're doing, is cortisol and insulin. If you can get those two things pretty dialed in, then you're going to be pretty healthy, because to get those two things dialed in, you have to eat healthy, you have to move healthy, you have to think healthy, you have to be in healthy environments, you have to digest your food properly, you have to be free of pathogens, you have to sleep well. Like, all of these things are connected to getting just these two hormones dialed in, and now we can quantify it, we can measure it. So let's see what's coming up now. Okay, 5.6, so staying pretty stable, kind of on the upper end of my range. So it's probably because I'm doing this Facebook Live right now, so that's probably one of the reasons. Of course, when you're doing something like this, your cortisol it starts going up, right? My body needs more energy. My brain is one of my most energy-intensive organs, pound for pound. It is the most energy-demanding organ, so I use my brain to do this, which means that I need more glucose in my system to be able to do that. And what you'll see, and I'll share this after I'm done, once I'm done this, it'll probably come back down. And I'm going to have some lunch. I'm going to have a nice big green salad, and I'm going to have some fat on that. I usually put MCT oil or brain octane or a nice healthy salad dressing, and I'm going to add some nuts to that. Specifically, I'm going to add seeds in this case. I'm going to add some hemp seeds and some walnuts. So there's all these different ways now I can measure and quantify. So this has become my new favorite toy. I check this now more than I check my phone, which is kind of ironic. But yeah, that's been my observation. This has been really insightful for me and very helpful for me. And I hope that some of you in Canada who are able to grab one of these can grab one from their website and start experimenting with yourself. I mean, this is a great way to start quantifying yourself. And I said earlier, we're going to start doing this with our patients as well, because this is going to be an awesome way for them to start becoming more accountable and for them to be more trackable. And, when we can track things and monitor things, and, people can report back to us, not just on how they feel, but how they're functioning on the inside, I feel like compliance and adherence to their protocols is going to go up. But it's also going to give us practitioners way more insight, because we can see how our recommendations are affecting these markers, because what you think might be working with your client might not be working. If you're a personal trainer, you definitely need to get your clients one of these. And it's a great tool for you to really fine tune and dial in this person's nutrition, because, I spoke earlier last year, it was in Phoenix, and I spoke for Charles Poliquin, and we discussed, I did a whole 8-hour session on neurotransmitters. And guess what? You could be eating perfect and you could have great protein intake, And let's just assume for a moment you're digesting all of it and you're breaking it down into amino acids. But the thing that determines whether those amino acids cross over the blood-brain barrier into the brain itself to then make neurotransmitters is actually insulin. So insulin and blood sugar regulation are very closely connected to the ability for the ability to amino acids to cross the brain so that they can turn into neurotransmitters. So pretty intense, to know that in a positive way, because it's a very actionable step that we can have. And again, as I mentioned earlier, if you're not fixing this, then all the supplements you're taking, all the testing that you're doing, all of the nutritional changes that you're making are going to be based on, what somebody else feels is best for you. And with their best intentions. Of course, we always put our best intentions to everything, but now you can actually quantify it, you can measure it. So I'm excited. We're moving in a direction where pretty soon we're going to be able to have live blood analysis of basically our test hormone levels, our blood sugar levels, our insulin levels, our ghrelin, adiponectin. I mean, all this stuff is coming down the pipeline for us to start being able to measure and quantify things. And there's going to be a decentralization and democratization of health that's taking place. And we're excited to be part of that democratization and decentralization. Information and power is going to come back to the end user. So I hope someday that us doctors are obsolete, because you're going to be able to take the best care of yourself possible. And some of you probably agree with that. And if you do, then show some love, because that's the future that I envision. I envision a future where people can take better care of themselves, and I can focus on other things. I love working with people, but I don't like to see broken people all day that are broken because they didn't know how to take care of themselves, because there's an agenda for you not to know how to take better care of yourself. And that's why this is the mission of our institute. Is we start with the premise, which is how do we keep you out of our office? And if you're doing everything you feel like you can to stay out of our office, then we're going to do everything we can to fix you and help you and support you and use the right tools in order for you to be able to do that. So that's our mission. That's our vision for the future. And we're seeing it. We're witnessing how power is coming back into your hands. Now, information doesn't solve everyone's problems, right? If information was the solution to our problems, then we wouldn't have divorces, we wouldn't have bankruptcies, we wouldn't have health challenges. Everyone would know exactly what to do. So certainly wisdom and partnering with somebody makes a lot of sense, because they're going to go based off their experience. So it's going to be hard to fix this existing generation because people have pre-existing issues that they've created over the years. So certainly we want to fix you, but for your kids, for your grandkids, we can create a completely different future through this decentralization of healthcare and the power going back into your hands. So that's the future that I see, and I know some of you see that future as well. So let's take some questions, because obviously I can get really excited about this stuff and keep going. I do not have a shortage of words to say. So Sweta from Brampton, welcome. Gabby from Denver, welcome. Goldie, thank you for tuning in as always. Miranda, thanks for tuning in. Karen from Ohio, thank you. Diana saying, what if we're not hungry? I'm not hungry until noon. Well, I would say grab one of these. If you're dumping all these catecholamines into your system, you're just aggravating your immune system. So just keep that in mind. Marissa, welcome. Thanks for tuning in. And then, okay, so currently under your stress, you only want 2 meals a day. Yeah, let's see how we can help or what can be done about the stress. Cindy, welcome. Thanks for tuning in. If blood sugar is low, what's the fastest way to raise it? Well, one thing I like is dates. Dates have a pretty high glycemic index, so they can raise your blood sugar pretty quickly. They're easy to digest. Fruit juices are actually really easy as well. Like watermelon juice will spike your blood sugar pretty quickly. So, that's a good choice if you have that option available to you. Fruit juices are probably one of the fastest ways. An orange is another way. Some diabetics will use that to raise their blood sugar. Okay, Goldie's asking, can you speak on adrenal fatigue and the best way to lose weight while having it? I'm eating well of late. Okay, Goldie, so what I would say is you want to find out what's leading to the adrenal fatigue, and it's not even adrenal fatigue, that name, that nomenclature is starting to change now. It's more, strain and stress on the adrenals. Your adrenals are doing exactly what they're programmed to do. And so blaming them and naming it like a disease like adrenal fatigue, although I know what you're saying, so don't take this personally, what we end up doing is we name a fatigue of the organ when it's really not the organ that's fatiguing. The organ is just being overused. We wouldn't call balding tires a disease, right? Because it happens from using and sometimes abusing our bodies. So I would say always find the root cause. Is it an emotional stress? Is it a chemical stress? Is it an environmental stress? What is it that's causing that? And give your adrenals a bit of a break. And the best thing for the adrenals is to sleep. That's when they restore and regenerate. So especially between the times between 10 p.m. and 2 a.m., that's when your adrenals are going to get the most restorative, restful energy. Okay, Tara, thanks for tuning in. We have Callie from Orange County, and she started following us after she read and saw something you did for Hashis. I was reading about this when I woke up at 4 last night, so it's a timely post. Okay, perfect. Synchronicity. Okay, and then Diana's asking, how does this relate to fasting, which I know can be good for the immune system? So, you know, fasting is good, but it's not good for everybody. Sometimes people are going to need some sort of intervention besides fasting. Okay, fasting, you want to use it wisely, and that's why the Living Proof fast, which we recommend, is designed so that you are consuming small amounts of maple syrup and green tea with lemon to essentially keep your blood sugar stable. And I'm going to be doing that. So one of the things that I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be fasting for a few days while I'm doing this self-study and research. Okay. And Cindy says, absolutely so true for me. Diana says, God, that is so smart. Okay, did you just poke and get blood? So Cindy, no, so maybe you missed it, but what I'm wearing is a continuous, excuse my hairy arms, a continuous glucose monitor. So what this does is it keeps, it's a little device and there's a little pin inside of it. You can't even feel it. I don't even know what's on. And basically I get my blood sugar. So there, it's high, okay? So my dates are kicking in. I had 4 dates before I started this talk, and now my body's digesting them, and you can see my blood sugar is popping high. So yeah, there you go. We can see in real time what food is doing to us, what our system is doing to us, and how we're reacting and responding to it. Okay, so Carol has posted where you can buy these. Thank you, Carol. May Magnesium, it looks like you have a fan here all the way from the other side of the world, and it's midnight. I should be asleep, but I won't miss this for the world. Wow, thank you, May. I appreciate that. I hope it was worth staying up late. I hope you're wearing your blue blockers if you're not, and I hope your computer screen has a red light filter on it by Flux. And Laura's asking, where do I find the Living Proof Fast? Carol, if you could share that, that would be fantastic. And if not, then I can share it as well. But I believe if you go to Facebook and you search Living Proof Fast, we've created a community group where you can join us. So, okay, guys, as promised, I would take your questions, and I think I've answered all of them. So if you have any questions, last-second questions, keep them coming, and I'll try to see if I can get to them. But I'm going to tune out here in just a moment. I wanted to take a moment to thank everyone for joining us and tuning in. And next week, the live that we're going to be doing is going to be on brain health. So I surveyed 3,000 people in our Facebook community, and the #1 topic by far was brain health. So if you want to know how to optimize brain health and neurological function, then just show a little love, show a little heart or a like or something so that we know that this is a topic that you are also interested in. And please share this. You know, if you do me one thing, if you do me one favor today, it's Diwali, so it's our Hindu New Year. All I'm asking and wishing that you do today is you share this with within your Facebook community, on your Facebook page, if you will, invite somebody or tag somebody that you love and care about. You know, my resolution or intention, really not a resolution, but my intention this year is to help millions and millions of people. And I want to do it organically. So I want to do it through your support, through your love, through the education that we provide, by you sharing and getting this information organically into as many people's hands as possible. It's easy for me to pay Mark Zuckerberg. I just have to press a few buttons and I can boost this post and get it out in front of millions of people. But I want this movement to be organic. I don't want to buy it. I want it to be from you. I want all of you to be part of this movement. And the way you can help is by helping this information propagate throughout social media and helping it go viral. So thank you. I appreciate that. Donna is asking, I'll take this question, then we'll sign off, is what is the best snack to have before bed if you are woken up during the night with a low blood sugar? So the answer for me is I don't know, because I'm going to start doing those experiments. I'm going to start experimenting with high fiber before I go to bed, because we know that regulates blood sugar. I'm going to start experimenting with timing my wake up time. So normally what I do is I wake up around 4 and then I just kind of toss and turn and force myself to go back to sleep, and then I have a broken sleep. But maybe that's my body's way of saying, hey, it's time to get up. Okay, so I'm going to experiment with changing up my wake up time, which then changes my go to bed time. I'm going to also experiment with a higher protein bedtime snack. So I'm going to try having a protein shake before I go to bed, and I'm going to add some fat to that protein shake. So I'm going to add some MCT oil, or something that's a little bit slower digesting, like olive oil, into my smoothie before I go to bed, and I'm going to see what happens. So I'll report back. I'll keep you guys posted on what I find works for me. But to answer your question with total transparency, the answer is I don't know, because I'm still learning about myself. And I hope that some of you take that initiative and order one of these bad boys and start learning about yourself as well, so that you can start quantifying and fine-tuning, in addition to the recommendations that you might be getting from our team or whoever you're working with. This is a great way for you to take the wheel and start becoming better biologically in tune with your body. So just before I sign off, I'm going to check my blood glucose one more time. I think it's like the 4th time I tested it. Let's see what comes back. 7.7. All right, so those dates are kicking in. I just blew my blood sugar results. See, I was so stable for the whole day, okay, since 8 a.m. to 12, and you can see what those dates did to me. So a guilt-free, typically snack. They were organic. I purposely had 4 of them to see what would happen because I love dates, but you can see what it does to my blood sugar, and you can see the trend that my blood sugar is going in and how quickly I can get that information. So these are, fantastic. I know now if my blood sugar is crashing, I need a couple of dates. So maybe I can have dates by my bedside, because that quickly raises my blood sugar, and that might help me go back to sleep if I wake up in the middle of the night. But what I can start doing is experimenting with how many I have. And pretty cool stuff. So the future is bright, and I look forward to sharing more information with you as it becomes available to me. And I hope this helped you. Just give me a little love or a like if it helped you. And if you're promising to share it, then I promise that we'll keep doing these, and we'll keep supporting your questions and providing you with as many answers as possible. So thank you guys. I love you all. Have an amazing New Year if you're a fellow Hindu, and happy Diwali. And if you're not, then just have an amazing day. Have an amazing rest of your year, and let's make every day count. Thank you guys. Bye.